All right, so a lot of people is talking about Andy Ruiz fight with Ortiz and how it basically went to Flop City, barely breaking 40,000 pay-per-views. Now, it's no secret that this wasn't going to do good. Everybody knew this, probably except PBC, and everybody knows these are bad fights. Everybody knows that you shouldn't put Andy Ruiz and Luis Ortiz on pay-per-view, nor should you put Robert Helenius and Deontay Wilder on pay-per-view. Okay, but let's talk about why this happened and why they even did it. It happened, and it's happening because PBC wants to sell you everything but a competitive fight. Their angles in which they are selling to you has nothing to do with competitiveness or the best of the best. PBC goes out of their way to appeal to your lower nature. And I'm not singling PBC out because this is how boxing is sold altogether. You know what I'm saying? Period. So why did they sell you a Andy Ruiz fight versus Luis Ortiz on pay-per-view? It's very simple. Since over there at PBC, they love to coddle the Latino fan base, this is what they were thinking. We have Andy Ruiz, the first Mexican heavyweight. And judging how these Mexicans make up excuses for Canelo Alvarez and don't care the level of competition that he fights, we have a Mexican product that was the first Mexican champion. We're going to sell him just being the first Mexican heavyweight champion and the fact that he's Mexican. We're going to put him up against a black fighter, and the Latino fan base is not going to care. They're going to eat this up because they're just pro-Mexican. Okay? That was the mindset. We have the first Mexican heavyweight. We give them a match that appeals to the Latino fan base. Black versus brown. We should do good because they don't care about competition. And look at all the excuses they make for Canelo Alvarez. We're putting this shit on pay-per-view. That's how that went down. Okay? The problem is the Mexican fan base didn't bite on it because they don't quite fully understand the Mexican fan base. This is why boxing has always pent black against brown, because it's better outcomes for both sides. I keep mentioning this in boxing, but people want to glaze over it because it brings up an element, I don't know, that makes you feel uncomfortable, which I don't know how. Because 9 times out of 10, the people that it makes feel uncomfortable is not even the demographic that deals with this problem in boxing. But they sold it because he's Mexican and he was the first Mexican heavyweight champion. And they thought it could fly with that because they seen how lackadaisical the Latino fan bases is on them taking proper fights. They don't care if they cheat. They embrace cheating. They don't care if you fight bums. They don't care if you fight your sparring partners. They don't care if you fight old men. They're going to be with it. So that's what they tried to sell them. But even they didn't bite on it. Okay? And the same thing is going to happen for Deontay Wilder and Robert Helenius. Once again, look at the formula. Do you think it's an accident that Luis Ortiz's opponent happens to be brown? Do you think it's an accident that Deontay Wilder is fighting a blue-eyed white opponent? That's also to help sell his angle. See, they're selling you everything but competitive fights. And they think, okay, so for the hardcore Deontay Wilder fans, they're just faithful for him no matter what. So they're not going to care about level of competition and this, and that. Let's give them Deontay Wilder beating up on a pale face. They should eat that up. And give Andy Ruiz fans, give them him beating up on a brown face or a black face, however you want to put it. Give them that. We're going to sell it to them for that. They're not going to care about the competition because they're too busy hero worshiping. Let's go. Let's put it on pay-per-view. That's how they sell it to you. Okay? And to drill my point further home, and I could have showed y'all this a long time ago, but I'm going to show it to you right now. Okay? I'm going to show you an image. Let me put an image of Gervonta Tank Davis and Leo Santa Cruz. Now, see, you guys don't understand this image yet. Okay? But take a close look at them. Look at their attire. Take a close look at their attire. Now, see, you don't understand this now. But watch when I put this up here, you're going to instantly understand. Look at the attire. Look at the flags. You think that's an accident? You think it's an accident that Leo Santa Cruz is wearing African colors from the African flag? You think it's an accident that Gervonta Davis is wearing Mexican colors from the Mexican flag? Now you see why Gervonta Davis fights the people that he does. And now you can clearly see the angle in which they choose to sell you fights. It's based on anything but the best of the best in competition. Here it is right here in front of your face. Explain to me why they do this. And this is not the first time. This happens a lot. How come the fighter always wear the colors of his opposition? That's because they're trying to antagonize and sometimes, in some cases, even cater to that opponent's fan base, whether to antagonize, whether to draw interest. The point is, boxing basically sells fights off rivalries, which you see with YouTube fighters. And the same way they use Dominican against Puerto Rican, the same way they use black against brown, they sell you boxing from all these other angles, but pure competition, but who's ranked the best, but who holds all the belts. And this is the problem with boxing, and this is why it's so casually driven. This is why it's predominantly a casual sport, because they try to appeal to your lower natures to sell the fight. Because you just being a boxing fan, they don't think it's enough juice behind that for you to be interested to pull money out of your pocket. Oh, but if you got a rivalry. Oh, but if you got a mental defect. Oh, but if you got some bigotry in you. Oh, but if you're a heavy patriot of whatever flag, this, and that. That's the energy they want to use for you to go inside of your pocket. They don't believe in the best fight. Hence, Terrence Bud Crawford and Errol Spence. This is why they're so hesitant to make that fight for you guys. Number one, because it's two guys the same color. They don't think that sells. Because the truth of the matter is, we all know that the reason why you don't see a lot of black presence as far as inside the arena when it comes to boxing is because black athletes, black people, they are so spread out and dominant in so many sports. They don't have one sport that they stick to like glue, like the Mexican fan base does, because that's really the only sport where they have some shine. It's not in the NFL. It's not in basketball. It's not in any strongman competitions. It's not really in UFC. It's not. This is the only place where they really have some kind of dominance in the sports world. So they cling to this sport like flies to shit. We are successful in so many other different sports that those take precedent over boxing. So the black demographic is not heavy as far as the crowd. The black demographic is heavy in the participation as far as the athletes. But as far as people that consume the sport, it's one of the smallest groups. So I don't blame the business strategy of trying to market towards the bigger demographic, which brings in revenue. But at the same time, you can't base everything off these theatrics, because it's shown that it even doesn't work. And what happened to all the big Andy Ruiz fans? Okay, how come the Mexicans didn't go out and support their first heavyweight Mexican champion? How come they didn't do that? That's a Mexican. So it's time for you to show your support. They say they run boxing, don't they? From these numbers, we can't tell, because at the end of the day, you still do your best. You still do your best numbers when the opponent is black. And blacks do some of their best numbers when the opponent is brown. That's boxing. And this is why they selling y'all these shitty fights. Because when you guys look forward to these fights, It's one of those other endeavors that has nothing to do with boxing that actually sparks your interest. So they sell you that. And this is why you get these shitty fights. And this is why they try to put Robert Helenius and Deontay Wilder on pay-per-view. And this is why they put Luis Ortiz and Andy Ruiz on pay-per-view. Like it or not, that's 100% facts from top to bottom. You want to see a change? They have to see a change in which boxing appeals to you. Then maybe they'll start making fights based off of competition instead of everything else. That's all I got for now. Like, comment, subscribe. Bruce Vane, I'm out.